High school dropouts choose between being demoted or fired. You're already old and useless, so there's no reason to keep you here. Sarah started to announce changes in the sales department's operations. From now on, only college graduates will handle deals, while others will be relegated to tasks like making coffee and cleaning. And those who don't like this change will face demotion or termination. Sarah had it out for me. It seemed like she had no intention of keeping me in the company. Thank you for everything. I knew what would happen to Smith Corporation after I left, but I decided to resign. As expected, chaos ensued at Smith Corporation. Please handle this $700 million deal. The client is Sun Holdings with $1 billion in annual revenue. This will be a huge profit for our company. The assignment came. He resigned yesterday. What Sarah never imagined was that I was the one handling the $700 million deal. Smith Corporation was in deep trouble, and she was about to discover the shocking truth. My name is Mike Johnson, 62 years old. I work in the sales department at Smith Corporation. This company operates in the wholesale industry, and including its branches and subsidiaries, it has an annual revenue of $30 billion. My job involves sales and negotiating ongoing deals with our regular clients. I no longer have the energy for field sales or cold calling, but I manage many ongoing contracts. Because of this, my work is mostly desk-based, with occasional trips outside for meetings. By the way, I'm 62 years old. I retired once at 60 and was rehired. The CEO respected my wish to keep working a bit longer. Smith Corporation's rehire system is used by about half of those eligible, so it's not unusual to want to be rehired. However, someone had a grudge against me for staying in the sales department past 60. That person is Sarah Davis, the sales department manager. She graduated from New York University and was promoted to manager at the young age of 40 because of her impressive credentials. In fact, her sales performance is high, and no one disputes her promotion. She must have been ecstatic to be promoted at 40, but at the same time, her promotion was decided when my rehire at age 60 was also approved. In her vision for the sales department, my presence was unnecessary. She was probably annoyed that I returned after she celebrated my retirement. Sarah approaches my desk where I am working. "Is the work progressing, Mike?" she asks. "Yes, manager," I reply. "Well, it's probably not making much progress anyway. It must be tough reading documents with your old eyes," she says, looking down on me. Well, it's true that I don't read as smoothly as the younger folks. I couldn't argue with that and just smiled. "You really should have stayed retired," she continues. "You weren't doing much work even before retirement. Well, is it because you're a high school dropout and can't afford living expenses? You're just a wage thief. While I'm not struggling financially, it's true that I'm a high school dropout. There are reasons for this, but I can't deny that I have a low educational background from a societal perspective. For those who don't know my background, a high school dropout in their 60s seems like an exceptionally hard-to-hire employee, working till retirement, never even making it to section chief or manager, and we still have to pay to rehire such incompetence. The world is unfair. Banning the rehiring of high school dropouts might filter out some, though. She has been bringing up this topic regularly for the past 2 years since she was promoted to manager. Sarah seems very eager to get rid of me. "So you just came to talk about that?" I ask. "Of course not," she replies. "I brought you some work. You should be grateful." With that, she slammed a stack of documents onto my desk. I already have work, but she seems to think I'm not doing much. I sighed deeply and checked the amount. "It looks like I'll have to work overtime today." "Understand?" she asks. Surprisingly obedient, aren't you? Even with a long career, being a high school dropout means you have to follow younger people. "I'd hate to be like that," she sneers. I couldn't argue and just smiled. "So, are you thinking of quitting?" she asks. "No, not quite yet," I reply. "How clueless," she scoffs. "Well, a high school dropout can cling to this job for now. Just watch." What could she possibly mean by that? Leaving those unsettling words, she walked away. Then, a few days later, Sarah did something unbelievable. She called all the sales department employees and began to announce changes in our duties. You will now be handling only paperwork. Also, make sure to frequently bring tea to the college graduates so they can work comfortably, she said. What do you mean? I have various ongoing deals that I'm responsible for. Those deals will be taken over by the college graduates. You high school dropout don't need to worry about them. Now go fetch some tea right away, she ordered. When Sarah gives an order, it's not easy to refuse. The employee left. Next, she called another employee. You'll be responsible for cleaning. Make the entire building spotless. Not a speck of dust should be left. But I also have deals to manage. I already told you. The deals will be handled by the college graduates. Don't make me repeat myself. No matter how many times she explained it, it was impossible to understand. All the sales department employees were puzzled. She began to explain. Since it seems you don't understand, I'll explain. High school dropouts and high school graduates handle the grunt work. All deals will be managed by college graduates. This is the most efficient and productive way. From now on, we'll work like this. That division of work. What, do you have a problem with it? Sarah glared at the employee who tried to protest. However, not satisfied, the employee argued back. But if we suddenly change the person in charge, our clients might lose trust. Shut up. This is why high school dropouts are hopeless. The clients don't trust high school dropouts or high school graduates and want someone else in charge. Can't you understand that? Such high self-esteem for a dropout. Unable to respond to that, the employee fell silent. Oh, by the way, if you can't accept these changes, you'll be transferred to our distribution center in Nebraska. If that's not acceptable, you can quit. Hearing this, the employees were shocked. The distribution center in Nebraska is where Smith Corporation's products are managed. It serves as the base for shipping to the western United States, where the work involves sorting and moving packages all day. In other words, it's monotonous labor from morning to night, and the pay is lower than working at the headquarters because it's a job that even part-timers can do. The employees would rather stay at the headquarters doing cleaning and making tea. However, I couldn't believe that accepting her decision was in Smith Corporation's best interest. Manager Sarah, I finally spoke up, unable to watch any longer. What is it? If you change the person in charge of ongoing deals, it will only increase the client's mistrust. There is a flow to these transactions. She glared at me, clearly furious that I opposed her. What do you have a problem with? I didn't expect such harsh words and could only smile. Riley, you worked until retirement without any position and were rehired out of pity as a high school dropout. Old fart. Seeing my hesitation, she smiled triumphantly and approached me. I was going to ask you too, Sarah said with a smug smile. High school dropouts choose between being demoted or fired. You're already old and useless, so there's no reason to keep you here. I was shocked to be told that I wouldn't even be allowed to do menial tasks in the future. But on reflection, it was obvious Sarah had always targeted me. Being a high school dropout or a high school graduate meant being relegated to menial tasks, and adding old age to that, she didn't want to see my face. I don't mind, even in the mountains of Nebraska, just sorting packages. They're always looking for part-timers there, so I'm sure they'd welcome a full-time employee. But if a 60-year-old grandpa shows up, they might say he's not useful. Sarah chuckled. So what will you do? I pondered my options. It's likely that the CEO and HR department know nothing about this change in duties. If they did, there's no way they would approve it. Clearly, this was a unilateral decision by manager Sarah. I could report this situation to the CEO, but I was tired of manager Sarah's constant one-sided animosity. I've already saved enough for my retirement, so quitting might not be so bad. After a moment of thought, I said, I'll resign. Oh, that's a shame. If you wanted to keep working so much, you should have gone to the distribution center. The employees started to buzz. Then one of them raised their voice. Wait, if my Cleaves, shut up. Low-level employees should stay quiet. That might have been the last chance to prevent Smith Corporation's downfall, but Sarah dismissed it easily. Knowing things would get worse, I saw no need to point it out myself. After being treated so poorly, should I write my resignation letter? Yes, you got it. For someone your age, You at least know that much. I quickly wrote the resignation letter that was prepared. I never thought my resignation would happen like this. Not wanting to hear complaints later, I asked, "What about the handover?" "No need. You're only doing paperwork anyway." Sarah seemed delighted to finally get rid of me and laughed gleefully. She must have been looking forward to this moment since she became a manager. "Thank you for everything," I said. The employees were whispering, worried, but Manager Sarah, smug and oblivious, didn't notice at all. Things would become chaotic without me, but she would have to take responsibility for that. The next day, since I had retired, I decided to relax in bed until late morning when Sarah called me. I had no obligation to answer, but she called so persistently that I couldn't sleep, so I picked up the phone. "Mike, what's going on?" "What do you mean?" Without any greeting, Sarah demanded an explanation. From her voice, it was clear that Smith Corporation was in a dire situation. What on earth had happened? With that question in mind, she began to explain the situation. Apparently, Sarah had successfully created a department where only college graduates handled deals. She had the authority to divide the work so HR and the CEO wouldn't notice for a while. As a result, Sarah was in a great mood this morning, thinking everything had gone as planned. "Please handle this $700 million deal. The client is Sun Holdings, with $10 billion in annual revenue. If we continue this relationship, it'll bring huge profits to our company." The department fell silent at her words. "What? Today's the $700 million deal, right? All deals are now handled by college graduates. It's bound to be a success, so there's no need to be so nervous." The employees exchanged glances. Then one of my former colleagues timidly spoke to Manager Sarah. He resigned yesterday. What that employee was indicating was that I was the one in charge of the $700 million deal. Manager Sarah, in a panic, said, "But it's $700 million. There's no way a rehired old man is handling such an important deal. Stop lying." But the employees exchanged glances again. They knew they were telling the truth and couldn't do anything about it. Incidentally, my former colleague graduated from UCLA. Because of this, Sarah thought that if a college graduate said it, it must be true. "Then I'll assign it to someone else. You graduated from UCLA, right? You can handle it, can't you?" "Well, do you have a problem?" Sarah pressed him further. However, after hesitating, he finally spoke in a small voice. "I think the client will only be satisfied if it's Mike. Shut up. If I say, do it, then do it. If an old high school dropout can handle it, so can you." "I understand." His face showed that he thought it would be impossible, but he reluctantly took on the deal. When he contacted the client in advance, they insisted it had to be Mike. He reported this to Manager Sarah. "See? I told you. I can't believe they want an old man like him. He's just a high school dropout. What could he possibly offer? Especially without the energy to go out and make sales." One of my colleagues responded to Manager Sarah. "Manager Sarah, don't you know? No? What Mike's career is?" The employees in the department watched the conversation between my colleague and Manager Sarah. Judging by their expressions, it seemed everyone knew about my background. Sarah joined Smith Corporation as a new graduate at 22 and has worked in the same department for 20 years. Apparently unaware, she focused only on my lack of education and position, showing no interest in anything else. Since everyone knew she disliked me, no one brought up my background in front of her. "What are you talking about? If you only look at resumes, you might not know. His resume is almost blank, showing only his middle school graduate status and previous job." My colleague continued, "However, Mike is very well known in the industry. Many major companies only do business with us because of him, so it's understandable that they won't proceed without him." "What? No way. Explain further." "I can't say more than this. Perhaps you should contact Mike." Realizing it wasn't appropriate to divulge more personal details, my colleague stopped. That's why she, who had eagerly fired me just yesterday, was now calling me in desperation. "So what's going on?" she asked, clearly furious. I didn't see the need to explain, but I decided to. "It's true that my name is somewhat known in the industry, so what does that mean? It seems I inherited my sales talent from my grandfather, who was also a CEO. Thanks to that, many companies continue to do business with me. Nearly 40 years ago, I handled deals with many major trading companies, so most big companies know me. To put it modestly, I was a legendary salesman back then. The story of how I got to this point goes back to my middle school days. My grandfather was the CEO of Johnson Corporation, a large conglomerate with annual revenues exceeding $1 billion. And I admired my grandfather a lot, so during summer and winter vacations in middle school, I helped out at his company. Of course, as a middle school student, I couldn't do sales work. Instead, I did menial tasks like making tea and cleaning at Johnson Corporation's headquarters. As an adult, being assigned these tasks might seem demeaning. However, I was thrilled to work at my grandfather's company and eagerly did anything asked of me. Soon, my middle school years flew by, and it was time to choose a path. While everyone else naturally chose to continue their education, I was drawn to working at my grandfather's company instead of going to high school. In hindsight, it was an incredibly reckless decision, but I was serious at the time. So I told my parents and grandfather that I wanted to work at his company instead of going to high school. They were, of course, against it, but I convinced them by agreeing to work and study simultaneously. That's how I ended up joining my grandfather's company right after middle school. I repeatedly pleaded with my parents and grandfather, even after being turned down. I persistently negotiated, and eventually, my parents and grandfather gave in. I continued doing menial tasks at Johnson Corporation until I was 20. Though the work was simple, I loved working at my grandfather's company. Over time, I gained more experience, and at 20, I was allowed to work in sales. I still remember the excitement I felt back then. I was finally trusted with work as a professional. Smiling nostalgically, I continued. Of course, it didn't go smoothly at first. I couldn't secure any contracts, and my boss constantly corrected my sales approach and communication. But I didn't give up and kept practicing my sales skills. Eventually, I managed to secure my first contract. The sense of achievement from securing my first contract was immense. I finally felt like a true salesman. After that, I continued in sales, and my talent blossomed. At 25, a successful deal with a major company helped me grasp the key to success, and I started securing contracts with major firms. Rumors began that doing business with me always led to profit, and many deals came my way. Understanding the client needs and offering appropriate solutions likely contributed to their profits. Seeing my success rate, the sales manager started assigning me important deals. Additionally, companies heard that working with me guaranteed profits and requested me by name. I closed these deals, gaining more and more trust both within and outside the company. I took on more deals with major firms and succeeded. My position as the top salesman in the company became unshakable. Executives from major companies knew my name. My sales performance received praise both inside and outside the company, and even headhunting offers from other firms. But I loved my grandfather's company, so I stayed at Johnson Corporation. I succeeded in all my deals, ensuring mutual profit. Every major company wanted to hire me. Many salespeople envied and admired me. I never talked about it myself, but I secretly knew I was called a legend. My grandfather served as CEO for a long time, but he finally retired at 75. The executive vice president at the time took over as CEO. My father wasn't interested in Johnson Corporation, and at 27, I was too young to become CEO. As the company restructured, management went smoothly. But Johnson Corporation started to change from how it was under my grandfather. With a new CEO, it was natural for the company culture to shift over time. Johnson Corporation became something different. The Johnson Corporation I had worked for since middle school was no more. I felt sad seeing the changes every day, so I thought starting fresh somewhere else might be good. That's why I considered changing jobs. I didn't dislike Johnson Corporation. I just thought that if the company was no longer the same, starting over in a new place might be better. So I chose to leave after properly handing over my responsibilities. Many major companies reached out to me, but I ended up joining Smith Corporation. This was when I was 36. I've been doing sales here ever since, but after being rehired, I stepped back from prominent roles. It's time for the younger generation to shine. I then explained Smith Corporation's current situation. All the major clients Smith Corporation has now are ones I secured. It's no wonder they won't proceed without me. How can someone like you work without a position? I managed so many deals that I didn't have time for administrative duties. That's why I remained without a position and focused solely on sales. That's why I didn't have a formal position. However, because of the importance of my work, my salary was on par with the managers. I was gradually handing over my responsibilities to younger employees, but being suddenly forced to resign means I couldn't properly say goodbye or complete the handover. It's no surprise the clients are saying they won't continue the deals. Why didn't you mention something so important sooner? Properly handing over duties is your responsibility when resigning. Sarah was furious. Well, I assumed you were already aware. Besides, I did ask if a handover was necessary. Even so, if it's that important, you should have made it clear. She then started to berate me. You need to tell the clients, inform them about the handover, and assure them that they should continue doing business with Smith Corporation. If you're so well known, you can at least do that, right? I'm sorry, but I must decline. Why? You've been with Smith Corporation for nearly 30 years, Sarah said bitterly. Even if you say that, do you think I would agree? Building trust is fundamental in business. If I go around telling clients about internal issues after I've already resigned, they'll soon realize what's happening. When that happens, trust will be lost, and the deals will be terminated even more quickly. By the way, Smith Corporation's annual revenue is $3 billion, but $15 billion of that comes from the major deals I secured. So far, the damage is limited to $700 million. But at this rate, Smith Corporation's business will plummet to rock bottom. Then come back to Smith Corporation. I'll speak to the HR department for you. Report to work immediately. Sorry, but I must decline. Why won't you agree to anything? Frustrated that nothing was going her way, Sarah threw a tantrum. She realized that all the major deals were secured through my connections. The thought of losing them because of her actions terrified her. That's why she was so desperate to bring me back, despite having fired me. Don't you understand? I decided to tell her. Every single day I was insulted as a high school dropout and old fart. I can't work under someone who judges people solely by their resume and educational background. Even if I agree to restore the deals, you'll just treat me like a burden again, won't you? That's not. Maybe she might change, but I didn't think so. Her inability to earn trust was her own fault. Is that all? Since I've retired, I'd like to relax. Wait, we're not finished talking. Goodbye. I hung up the phone and blocked her number before going back to sleep. Later, I heard that Smith Corporation was in serious trouble. Not only was the $700 million deal affected, but I had also been handling many other major deals worth $500 million and $1 billion. When I didn't show up for those meetings, the clients became suspicious. Upon inquiring with Smith Corporation's employees, they found out I had retired. As expected, the clients started terminating their contracts, saying there was no point in continuing without me. Smith Corporation began losing its major clients one after another. While smaller deals could still be salvaged, the loss of multiple major deals was a significant blow. A week later, Smith Corporation's CEO, Mr. Smith, summoned me. I wouldn't have responded to Manager Sarah's summons, but it was different with Mr. Smith. He had supported me for nearly 30 years. When I arrived at the office, I saw Sarah sitting dejectedly in the corner. Mr. Smith, seated at his desk, sighed deeply. I heard the situation, and we had no idea she changed the sales department's operations. The suggestion of demotion was also completely unauthorized. I am truly sorry for what happened, I said. Please don't worry about it, Mr. Smith. You've always been good to me. Now apologize to him. I'm very sorry, she whispered. It seemed Mr. Smith had severely reprimanded her, and she was on the verge of tears. Clearly, the changes were made solely by Sarah without any approval. I couldn't help but feel sorry for Mr. Smith. Now, to the main point. You may have already heard, but our company is in serious trouble. We're losing major contracts rapidly, and if this continues, our business will falter." Mr. Smith looked desperate. "We can still resign your resignation, so if you're willing, will you come back?" "I don't mind returning, but I have one condition." "What is it?" Manager Sarah's face paled, guessing what I was about to say. Without hesitation, I continued, "Please fire Manager Sarah." Sarah immediately protested. "Wait, you don't have to go as far as firing me, do you? You understand what you've done to me and the sales department. Smith Corporation is a large company. If she were fired from here, it would be nearly impossible for her to find a similar position at another company. That's why she was so desperate to hold on. But I've always contributed to this company. I graduated from New York University and have always been a top performer in sales. How can you fire me based on your word alone?" "Be quiet," Mr. Smith commanded. However, unable to accept her termination, Sarah persisted. "Wait, Mr. Smith. Firing me is unfair. I've been contributing to this company since I joined as a new graduate. Do you understand what you've done?" Mr. Smith glared at Manager Sarah. "I was trying to make the company's operations more efficient, and the result was a unilateral change in responsibilities, ignoring the employee's circumstances and dignity." That silenced her with his strict questioning. Sarah fell silent. Then I addressed her with what I wanted to say. "I am older and my strength has diminished, so you do have a point. But there's a limit to how much you can insult someone." I glared at her and continued, "I may be a high school dropout, but that allowed me to learn the way of the company early and gain sales knowledge faster than anyone. But you ridiculed me without knowing my circumstances." Hearing my words, Sarah trembled. "And it's not just that. Your attitude towards other non-college graduate employees and your arrogance in unilaterally changing job duties are also unacceptable. I can return, handle the handover, and apologize to our clients, but not if you remain here. This can't be. Alternatively, I can stay retired. In that case, you'll be responsible for all my work. Honestly, I'm fine with either option. I've already saved enough for my retirement. So what will it be? Can you do it now? As a Harvard University graduate, maybe you could go ahead and give it a try." Hearing my words, Sarah bit her lip in frustration. She realized that without me, she couldn't recover from this blunder. As the contracts continued to be canceled, imagining Smith Corporation eventually recovering without her filled her with despair. Unable to respond to my challenge, she stood there silent. Mr. Smith nodded. "Very well, she will be dismissed." President Sarah pleaded with Mr. Smith. "Please wait. I've done so much for this company." "Enough. Do you understand that your rash actions have nearly caused a loss of $15 billion? No way," he reprimanded. "Write your resignation letter and leave. You don't need to come in tomorrow." "I understand," she muttered. Reprimanded, she wrote her resignation letter with tears in her eyes. Sarah resigned and never returned to Smith Corporation. After that, she tried to leverage her high education to find a job at another company, but news had spread that she was the one responsible for my resignation. She sent resumes to many major companies, but was rejected during the document screening process. Even when she managed to get an interview, her arrogant attitude led to her rejection, and she remained without a job offer for 6 months. She had high pride, believing she could only work as a full-time employee at a major company. But after many rejections, her pride was shattered. Eventually, she started working part-time, earning a fraction of what she made at Smith Corporation, struggling daily. As for me, I returned to Smith Corporation. I began the process of taking over major contracts and apologizing to our clients. For a while, the employees were worried about the future, but they felt reassured when I came back. As news of my return spread, and with my apologies, our major contracts with clients were restored. It turned out that Sarah had been quite arrogant with our clients as well. When they heard she was fired, they told me they found it easier to work with us. After all the turmoil, Smith Corporation became easier to manage than before. I plan to retire at 65. However, if the transition continues smoothly, Smith Corporation will be able to expand its business with major clients even after I leave. My legendary career will also come to a satisfying conclusion. Although I left my grandfather's company, I'm glad I joined this one. There are a few years left until I turn 65, to end my sales career on a high note. I want to continue working diligently at this company.